are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's go!
Welcome in. This is Locked On Hornets live here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We're getting started a few minutes late. If you're still out there watching us live, we apologize for the technical difficulties. That we're pioneering new ground here, guys. So, we're forging some new territory here in this sports live streaming podcast on kind of a budget. So, thanks for bearing with us. We're coming to you from the Gittimer.com studios in beautiful Uptown Charlotte. I'm Doug Branson, joined by the man in the middle, the one, the only, the legendary David Walker.
We are all the way live tonight, Doug. All the way live.
We are
now. We are.
Yes, now we are.
You guys don't even know the amazing show that you just missed for about 5 minutes. We'll try and recreate it.
Yeah. No. Well, we're going to do our best. Justin said before we went on, he said, "I'm just going to do that again. I'm going to roll that back. We're going to take it from one." And speaking of Justin, he's holding down the left block for us as always. He covers the Hornets for ESPN Charlotte. Justin Thomas, what's going on, my man? Do you remember what you said when you opened the show?
Oh, I'm changing it. Actually, I'm changing it because I came on here and I forgot to tell you guys.
Okay.
Don't
say the Cowboys. God bless
the
it.
playoff berth, baby.
We should have.
Hey, all is well in America.
Why did we have these
well.
technical difficulties?
And James Harden scored 37 last night, so things are well. Florida State is going to a New Year's Six Bowl, so things are good in my world. I'm all smiles.
And I'm not even going to respond to that. Outside the class, our new producer, Captain Kurt, dropping those sweet droppity drops.
Kick the tires and light the fires, Big Daddy.
Woo!
That's it.
Where's my cigar? I need that's a good. He smokes a cigar on Independence Day.
I've never smoked.
What's his name? Harry Connick Jr.?
Only after they're done, though. Right.
Right.
So actually,
Fat
technically,
lady so far, okay. Well,
spoiler alert, he didn't make it. He didn't make it though.
That's right.
This is only Will Smith smoking that cigar.
That's right.
What movie is this?
Sorry, guys.
Wow. Independence Day.
I don't remember them. I was like 6. Geez. It was a long time ago. I've seen it. I was like 6.
Have you seen the new Hemsworth version?
I have not.
Okay,
Don't.
me neither.
Don't.
I mean, I wasn't going to watch it, but...
No, that is beyond a difficult watch. Don't do it. It
they
didn't
would
ruin
ruin
the
it.
original movie because I'm just going to forget that sequel ever existed.
I do remember Will Smith fighting the alien, though.
Well,
it's probably my favorite part.
I guess that's good enough. All right,
It
we've got a
is.
great show ahead. Lee Ellis from the Starters joins David for a chat on what you guys talk about. You talked about Dwayne Wade.
We talked about Wade. We
Being
talked
a
about
dad?
some Warriors. We got into some dad TV shows.
Yeah, if you're a dad out there, you really want to check this
dads
out.
pay
Proud
attention.
dads out there. Stay tuned for some picks.
And also, Adam Mata sat down with me. He's the host of Locked On Nuggets here on the Locked On Podcast Network, but he's also a writer for Vice Sports. He wrote a great article on the Hornets and Kemba Walker. We didn't discuss that. If you subscribe to our daily shows, you can hear that discussion, but we did talk about James Harden. I basically gave a gift to Justin because I know how much he loves James Harden now. And we're also discussing our All-Star rankings. It is not too early to talk about the All-Star game, so we'll get into that as well. Okay, with that, we get this thing started. All right, the step back three things we saw this week in Hornets action that made us say, nah. David, what you got?
I'm going positive this week, Doug. I've been negative the last few weeks, guys, and I'm giving Spencer Hawes a break. That's just kidding. No more. I didn't give him a break. Dang it. All right, so we're going Kemba Walker from last night in Dallas. Cody Zeller comes up with the big-time block. Nick Batum with the luscious bounce pass, and then Kemba Walker finishes off this fast break in Kemba Walker style, beating his man to the baseline and hitting a tough layup that helped extend that lead. Doug, he's hitting about 62% of those layups this year, which has really helped him bump that average up. And in the last couple of games, he's been struggling a little bit from the outside, so these layups are continuing to fall. Another great one from Kemba there.
Well, that one was – I don't want to discount what he did here. It's not an easy layup that he hit, but he didn't have a lot of contact here. But to say, Kemba Walker has an open lane and that's why he's been able to hit these free throws, I think that discounts the fact that Kemba has really learned how to finish with contact.
And use the guy that's coming up against him, as almost to bounce off him. He did that a couple times last night. Powell would come up, he'd jump into him, either get contact or keep finishing. So he's doing a great job of that.
He mentioned that with his conversation with Mark Stein of ESPN. So
his ability to finish, exactly. Yeah. So that's been a big bonus for him.
It had to be a focus in the offseason, and you can certainly see the fruits of his labor. Okay, Justin, stepping back, what you got?
I'd like to say me and Clifford always agree. But this time where Clifford is a little more modest, I'm going to have some positivity. And I would like to shed some light on some of the reserve players. The past 3 games, listen to these numbers for the bench scoring. 47 points, 41 points, and 46 points. They went 2-1 over that 3-game stretch. And last week I asked Clifford about it, and as expected, he downplayed it. We do have the audio for that for those who are curious. But, I'd like to say, hey, Marco's been playing a little better. Lamb's been playing better. Hibbert's getting healthy. So things are starting to flow for these guys. And I know they haven't been consistently good, but this is a small sample size, but I think they're starting to trend in the right direction.
All right, and Clifford addressed that.
Actually, we've been, in my opinion, very sporadic with our play off the bench. Some nights real good, some nights are actually really bad. And it all depends on when they've had to play against more starting level players, they've really struggled. And we've got to do better with that. So that's why we're still searching, frankly, for the playing groups. And until Marvin gets back, we won't get to that.
And, as expected. But the Hornets are 6th in bench scoring, and I think that's a 2 thumbs up.
Yeah, I mean, the bench is giving them about 40 points a game, which is good enough. Actually, I got it for 5th here, Justin. So I did a quick update of your stats coming off of last night.
The update.
So updated the update there. And that's something that we were worried about in the preseason, right? Who knew how Kaminsky, Lamb, Hibbert, Bellinelli coming off a horrible year. We weren't sure how they were going to rebound. I always refer back to David Locke, our fearless leader at the Locked On Podcast Network. He was not concerned. He was not as concerned as we were going into that season preview. And the scoring has not been a problem for this bench. That's kind of the theme for this team, right? Scoring hasn't been the issue. They haven't needed to find points. It's been stopping guys on the defensive end where they're struggling a little bit. So maybe, what do you think? I mean, Clifford is always harping on defense, right?
He's always harping on defense and also consistency. I think that's been the real problem with the bench is that when they're on, they've been incredibly on. And when they're off, they've been incredibly off, especially on the defensive end and especially in that beginning of the fourth quarter. What you kind of heard in that, but a little bit before that, bite that we just played, Steve Clifford talked about how matchups play a key role in this as well. And so, if we've seen this in a couple games, so the loss to Dallas and the loss to the Minnesota Timberwolves, both opposing coaches got their starters out early against the second unit and against sort of the waning minutes of the second unit and were able to produce some things in the fourth quarter. And, it's tough. I mean, if you're Clifford, you want to get guys into a rotation. You want to get them into a groove. It's really early in the season, but then another team attacks you like that, and it's going to really kill your numbers. But he's a very demanding coach. So, some differing opinions there on what really constitutes great bench play. It's a fun debate. Okay, I'm going to step back to one Michael Kidd-Gilchrist and his ability this week to finish in transition, but also just early in the shot clock. It's been important for the Hornets offense, especially some of the teams they played have been really tough defensive teams. And so you really want to get in early in the shot clock and increase the pace, especially against the Mavericks here. And just how aggressive he's been. It's something that the Hornets definitely missed last season when they did not have Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. It's a part of his offensive game that we always try to remember when we talk about his struggles with his jump shot. And he was just really successful with it this week. 22.6% of his points come off the fast break. That leads the team, and he has 1.23 points per possession. That's outstanding per game in transition, but only getting 1.3 field goal attempts per game. So I'm going to say, it's been outstanding for Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, but I want a little more. I think they should work a little harder to get Michael Kidd-Gilchrist opportunities early in the shot clock. I'm not saying he has to be Russell Westbrook and I think he has 4 field goal attempts per game in transition. That's absurd. That's, really looking for those opportunities. But hopefully they can find some more because he's just an amazing finisher with contact. He can get fouled, and he just finds ways to weave his body in there and convert. So that's what I'm
never hurts to reward him either. The defensive guys that really go out there and get after it, reward them on the offensive end.
Absolutely.
Set them up every now and then.
Okay, each week we're asking you, the listener, the watcher, our question of the show. Send us your response on Twitter at Locked On Hornets, and it will pop up on the screen next to us. Or If you're watching live on YouTube or Facebook, just leave it in the comments. And David and Justin, they're paying attention to the comments right now. They're going to read them later in the show. This week's question is a double question. Double. Who or what? We make our own sound effects here. We make our own drop. I want that as a drop. Who or what has most surprised you this season, and what has least surprised you? So that's our question of the show. Tweet us at Locked On Hornets or hit us up in the chat. Earlier this week, David talked to an old friend of the show. It's okay. We can call him old friend, right? After you've been on, I think 3 times is really the old friend territory.
For sure.
So old friend of the show from the starters on NBA TV, the one, the only Lee Ellis. We shared his thoughts on the Hornets last week on the show, on the Daily Show. So if you haven't subscribed to us on iTunes, you're missing out. You gotta check that interview out. But you had a chance to chat about some other things. What did you guys talk about?
Yeah, we talked about some overarching, NBA themes as well. We hit on the Bulls, their surprising start. We talked about the Warriors some. And then, like you said, Doug, the very end there, we did get into some of the better shows on Nick Jr. and Disney Jr., so stay tuned for that.
Oh.
Yeah, and you guys started off with some talk about one of the best teams in the NBA, the Golden State Warriors.
The scary thing for the rest of the league, though, right now, apart from maybe the Cavs, is that the Warriors just look incredible on offense. And, their defense is starting to come around. Kevin Durant is playing a fantastic defense, probably the best defense he's ever played, even though that's not a knock on his defense in the past. He's been a good defender, but he's now even understanding how much better he can be using his length and his athleticism on the defensive end. And, when they go forward, it's like, you have pressure put on your offense as an opponent by the Warriors' offense, because if you don't score, the chances of the Warriors not scoring for 3 or 4 possessions in a row is almost zilch.
They bring in so much talent, and sometimes you will think it will take a while. And I think of a team in the East like Chicago who brought in a lot of big-name talent. I thought it was going to be a disaster, and somehow they've surprised everybody, I think. They're shooting a lot of mid-range jumpers. Do you think that success is sustainable? Can all those guys coexist for a whole season?
I don't think so, but Dwayne Wade has been unbelievable this season. And the one thing I'll say about Dwayne Wade is, when he plays, he has been one of the most consistent performers we've ever seen. He's incredible. And he does sit out a couple of games, which is fair. He's earned that right after, this is his 14th season. He's won 3 championships. He's been to the finals 5 times. He's done so much. And he's a legend. He's gone to the Hall of Fame. He's got all the accolades. And now he's in Chicago, and he's almost showing a lot of people, myself included, that he's still got something left in the tank.
Leah, we'll get you out of here on this one, but I wanted to get a little advice from you, because eventually the Hornets will go on a West Coast trip. I got 2 sons under 3. I can barely stay up for a 7 o'clock tip. I know you guys watch all these games. What's your strategy for the late tips? Is it all about DVR? Is it about the League Pass, condensed game? What's your go-to?
Well, it really depends. Let's say, for example, it's Warriors versus Cavs. Let's just say, and it's a 10:30 tip-off. For something like that, I'll definitely watch the first half, and then see where I am at that point. If I'm sort of already struggling, then I'll probably watch the second half in the morning. If it's, say, someone like the Warriors versus the Wolves, I might only just watch that first quarter and then decide to catch up the rest of it in the morning. Sometimes, though, like a Thursday night, I don't mind staying up for the whole game. If it's Warriors Spurs, then that's fine. I can do that. But generally, I try. You said you got 2 boys under 3. I've got one who's 4 and a bit, and the other one's only 3 months old.
There we go.
Sometimes you just have to get Paw Patrol on the TV for the 4-year-old and put a Paw Patrol marathon on and see if you can get as much of the game in as you can. And sometimes you have to just go to the condensed version.
That's right. I love the Warriors or the Clippers on a Friday, Saturday night, something like that. That's always good. But I'm with you. It's either I've got the iPad or iPhone, or my son does, and it's either NBA League Pass or Paw Patrol, Bubble Guppies. Take your pick, Dora,
whatever
anything in there. Exactly.
All right, thanks to Lee Ellis there.
I could go on and on. If you need, I got anything.
Well,
as far as shows.
So have you got your 3-year-olds watching Westworld yet? Or it's a great way. It's a great way to kick off a few conversations. You can go ahead and get the birds and the bees out of the way. You can get death conversation out of the way. It's like it could be 4 episodes of Parenthood all in one after watching an episode of Westworld.
We're gonna hold off on that for now. We'll come back to it.
They are a little young.
Yeah.
I think Justin's a little too young for Westworld too. Well,
I've seen one episode.
I've seen stuff, Doug.
I know what things are.
I know what things are.
All right, time now for our question of the show, and we have a fancy new intro for this. Check it out.
Always question with the Q. Questions help us learn things new. Question marks are very cool, especially when you're in school. Always question when you try. You'll find who, what, where, when, why. Question marks are very fun. Let's break them down now one by one.
One by one, question of the show. That song, Always Question, by a band called Read This Ever.
Did you put that together?
I did.
That is great because the Lance Stevenson one, that's by far the
I wanted to
funniest
make.
one.
I couldn't find a widescreen. I wanted to make it pop up, similar to what
Like
Lance
when
did.
he popped out.
Yeah, but I couldn't find a widescreen version. And I
That
ran
was
out of
good
time.
work, my man. Good
Hey,
work.
thanks. I
That
appreciate
is when he popped up, though, right? I see Fisher in the background there.
it. Yeah. All right, this is the question of the show. It's not when did Lance pop up? It's who or what has surprised you most this season, and who or what has surprised you the least? Get on YouTube right now, go to the chat window, and fire your answer, because we'll read those here in a few minutes. But I'm going to toss this to David. David, what surprised you most? What surprised you least?
The most surprising thing is that bench again. I mean, the bench scoring. We gave it away a little bit, but Justin mentioned the stats, what they're doing scoring-wise, where that ranks in the league, and we were concerned about that starting the season. So that's been the biggest surprise for me, and it's been a nice surprise.
I don't know which one to answer first.
Do the.
I was over here thinking.
I'll hold your hand. Don't worry. Most surprised. What has most surprised you this season?
This isn't going to be too positive. I didn't want to be kind of the jury when like the weather outside, but
You can be whatever you want to be, Justin.
I would just like to say I've been surprised by their ability to stay afloat. They're fourth right now in the East, and Clifford talks about it all the time as sustainability, and they just struggle to play 48 minutes of basketball. I think like 2 nights ago he said we can be great for 8 minutes and we could be terrible for 3. And they've had injuries. They have brutal stretches of 18 and 32. They're not extremely healthy, and they're not even in playing groups. And yet, they're still making ends meet. They've even blown some games where I thought they had real good chances to win, but they're still clawing. And I think that's very impressive. And at least, it's Kemba. I know Kemba grinds so hard, so I knew he was going to be good. So I wasn't really shocked by that, but I would say Kemba and their ability to stay afloat.
Yeah.
Well, and that not only goes for the entire season. By the way, they're 12-9, fourth in the Eastern Conference, number 1 in the Southeast Division. So they're not only staying afloat, I still think they are thriving as a team, even though their performances have been up and down. But I think that has to do with game to game, too. We've seen them have some tough losses, but they've also been in some really hairy situations. I look back just the last game against Dallas. They were down 10 in the third quarter. They've almost let a few games really get out of hand. And we've seen Atlanta, we've seen the Bulls, we've seen top teams in the East. Or not really, Atlanta's not a top team in the East right now, but we've seen the Celtics, the Bulls, all drop multiple games by 20 plus. And that's letting a game get out of hand and not being able to recover. The Hornets have been in several of those situations this season, and only 1 or 2 have they really let get out of hand. So I think, and one of them was against Detroit, who they'll get a chance at revenge Wednesday night.
Yeah, and of course that was the 4 games in 5 nights, and we've been over that enough. The other one was probably the Grizzlies game, which got out of hand for some reason, and they did get revenge in the turnaround game with that team. So maybe the same thing will happen with Detroit.
And I've been most surprised by the poor free throw shooting.
Yeah.
Because it was such an asset to this team and such a big part of their offense, getting to the free throw line. We sort of heard some inklings that they didn't want to get to the free throw line as much because it was sort of a crutch that they leaned on last season. But they've been doing it just as much this season, but their efficiency has not been there. We've seen nights of under 70% being regular. Luckily, against Dallas, they get 26 of 28 from the line. They need more of that.
Well, what's surprising?
Think about it. They scored 109 points last night, and their offense didn't look stellar the entire night. So just if they can hit their free throws, this could be a really, really good offense.
And what's surprising is the guys that are bringing that average down, right? Because I think MKG is up. Mm-hmm. He's got to be up. It's like Batum. It's normal guys. Kemba even has missed some. Bellinelli started to miss some after he didn't miss any for like the first week of the season. So, yeah, hopefully you can get that corrected because they've lost games because of that. Clifford's called that out. Unfortunately, Justin, we've talked about it. There's not much you can do other than just go up there and hit the shots.
At the bare minimum, as an NBA player, you should be able to do two things: make a layup and shoot free throws.
Well,
if you can do nothing else, and the fact that they're struggling from the free throw line, those are things that those are things you don't even equate because you just assume that they're going to be solid at that. And the fact that you have to talk about free throw shooting, that has to
and that's why you hope that it'll rebound. I mean, look at Kemba; he's 77% from the free throw line after 85% last year, and that's after jumping every other statistic getting better with every other shooting statistic. So you have to hope that the free throws will follow suit, right? I mean, but it's a different animal. I mean, especially in some of these close games, right? You lose focus, you lose concentration. I think that's the thing that Clifford keeps talking about is the concentration piece, and so that can leak over into the free throws. And I don't know. I mean, do you feel like they can get it correct? I feel like they can get it correct, Doug, because they weren't like this last year.
I mean, step one was last night, and I think they're addressing it. I think you have to because again, there's not really the only debilitating free throw shooter this team has is Ramon Sessions. And that's not. It's not like a team like Atlanta they've seen their free throw percentage go through the basement because they have Dwight Howard. So it's just something you can't have. I'm going to go to the chat room here and get a few of the answers for most surprising. Biggest surprise for C. Small is Kemba's improvement and how he's learned how to carry a game. So that's from C. Small there. Let's see. Zeller's play has been a surprising bright spot, says Walker Keith. 82, never thought I would appreciate a good screen as much as I do now. A lot of talk about Cody Zeller's screen assist ability and really how much it's been a factor in a lot of people's success. I mean, you've seen him work it with Batum, but he's also helped open some things up from Kemba Walker, and a lot of that comes from the fact that he's added a lot of strength.
Yeah, I thought he got a couple chippies last night, too, in Dallas. I don't know what you felt about the officials' calls last night, fellas, when you were watching that. It was a little choppy for me. I mean, he got a late one. I think he got two. When's the last time Cody gets two illegal screens, after all this talk?
I haven't seen it often.
Yeah, so, I mean, it happens every once in a while, and you'll see one of those, like, in every NBA game, but I was surprised he got those, too.
All right, least surprising thing, David.
Least surprising thing to me is Steve Clifford. Steady Eddie, you know what I mean?
Steady as she goes.
Yeah.
Cliffa-liffa-ding-dong. Cliffa-liffa-ding-dong. That's right.
Oh, boy. But I expected him to be even keel, and he has been. He's carried so many of those themes that we've seen him talk about from day one last year to this year. Now, the bad news is they're still there, this consistency thing, this playing hard 48 minutes every night. But his themes are consistent. I mean, they know what they need to get from, or the players know what he's asking of them, and he's been steady the whole time.
And again, it's so important on a team that doesn't have a superstar, that doesn't have that guiding force on the court. And I think after the Minnesota breakdown, I expected Clifford to come out there and just really let everyone have it.
I was hoping he was.
And he did talk about physicality. And then the important thing is, though, he stayed calm, he stayed collective, he was honest, and he delivers messages to his team before he delivers them to the media. He's always open and honest with players, and that's what we hear time after time from guys. And you saw them against Dallas respond to the message. That's been the most important thing. They respond to the message. They get the free throw shooting figured out. They were much more physical against Dallas. And so, again, message translation, probably, in my mind, one of the most important things for a coach to do, and he's doing it, Justin.
He is. Clifford, I just marvel at the guy. I really do. Like, sometimes.
You're going to be all right?
He does, but he finds a way.
All right, least surprising thing, Justin.
Least. Sadly, I gave that in the first one, but I'll go back. And I'm gonna tell you why I'm gonna go back and actually listen to the Kemba Walker conversation with Mark Stein. And I say Kemba because and he's having this great year. And Mark Stein asked him, like, "Did you do anything different?" Mm-hmm. And he said, "Well, I was injured, so I couldn't do much. I watched film, but it wasn't any different. Like every summer, I approached the summer the same way. I come in and get better and get better. And we always talk about Kemba. And people ask Clifford these questions all the time. And he says, there's nothing that I'm going to tell you that nobody knows. He just shows up and he literally puts in the work. I can't say that he worked with this guy or he did this. He just shows up to the gym and he works. And even said this summer was harder because he was injured and he couldn't do much but watch film. And he went in there. And I remember like the first preseason game you saw and you're like, he hasn't played in a while. And he's still sharp. And to see him now shooting from distance and carrying this team when God knows if he wasn't out there, I don't know what would go on sometimes. And it's just least surprising because I just know day in and day out, Kemba's going to show up.
Yeah,
He's gonna put in the work.
Yeah, in late games especially, Kemba's been huge. And, we talked about in the offseason that you look back at last season, so many guys made a leap. Marvin made a huge leap, which was crazy because of how late in his career he is. Kemba made a leap. Nick Batum played really well. And so the conversation sort of started to shift towards, well, how are they going to follow that up? How can what's this team? And I think a lot of people who sort of put this team down a few pegs in the offseason thought that very thought. But we've seen Kemba make another leap. We've seen Cody Zeller raise his game. He's getting career high numbers. Jeremy Lamb, if now that he's on the floor, he could start to make that jump as well. So there are opportunities. Even if Marvin continues to regress, there are opportunities for this team. There's room to grow. Marco Bellinelli, again, another guy. I think there's plenty of opportunity for this team to make a leap still.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that surprises me about Kemba, I didn't think he'd have a regression. I didn't know he had the ability to make another leap just as significant as he did the year before. I mean, being 6th year in the league, you just don't see that. I mean, you usually see it maybe, third year when guys get their legs. But this is his 6th year in the league, and I think that's what's surprising a lot of people outside of Charlotte or outside of the Hornets organization. Like I said, effective field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, 2-point, everything's up except for those free throws.
Reminds me of. Do you remember when LeBron was in Cleveland and he couldn't shoot? And
early.
And he showed up. He
Yeah.
showed up to South Beach that year. He was nuts. He was hitting threes.
Yeah.
And God knows he could never shoot. And I think that's how it is with Kemba. It's like, those guys are going to get better and better.
Well, that's why it's even more surprising. LeBron obviously didn't go to college, right? So he spent his first 4 years in the NBA. Kemba was in college. That's the thing. I mean, he's had so many.
Well, he never really was a great shooter at UConn.
Right.
He could score, but
you typically
shoot.
don't see these guys come in, continue to get better, and then make not one jump but two.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I wasn't surprised that he was able to do it again. I think the level that he's playing at this year is pleasantly surprising as well.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah.
You may.
Now, when guys make these leaps, does it not make you question other guys like, okay, he couldn't do this before. He went in and literally practiced this all summer. Now he can do it. Do you ever look at other guys and be like, well, we clearly see what comes from results. Now, some guys just aren't going to be better at certain things. Like, Dwight's never going to have a jump shot. But, for like other guys that you look at and question, they couldn't tighten up their ball handling here. Or they couldn't tighten up their shooting here. Or just little things of their game.
Well,
guys that have been in the league a while, I don't know. Like Frank, I think I wouldn't look at him and say things like that because I think, and Daniel makes a good comment here, Frank's poor range shooting has been surprising. Mm-hmm. It's not as surprising to me because I see him. He's one of the first guys out there practicing his three-pointers before a game, and I'm sure the same goes for practice. But, he's trying to, like, really wrap his head around, to become a versatile player, you've got to wrap your head around so many different things that I can see his range shooting come back all of a sudden and then him not being able to finish inside. Like, it's going to take, I think, another year or two for him to really round his game out and decide, exactly what his focuses are. So I think from that perspective, I think guys can give it all they have and still not make a leap one particular year because of a variety of things, injuries or trying to focus on one thing and another part of their game break down.
And I think stability too, right? Especially in this specific situation.
Yeah.
Look, Kemba has been with Clifford now for 3 years?
Yep.
He's been with this infrastructure now going on 3 or 4 years. They bring in Nick Batum. They've built around him. I mean, they've added pieces around him. They brought in Nick Batum to be another creator. They had Lynn in last year to be a creator. So I think a lot of times guys, and a lot of
That's
times
such a great point.
organizations will give up on younger guys, especially point guards, right? If it doesn't happen right away. And so I think that's a big deal when it comes. I mean, a lot of it's situational.
And it's an argument against trying to go out there and getting like a mid-level type of free agent to shake things up, because it's going to disrupt that continuity. But having, Kemba, Nick, MKG, Zeller, it's sort of an argument an argument for bringing Zeller back, is that you want to develop that continuity because it allows players to make leaps, because they don't have to worry about, getting accustomed to playing with a certain guy. They can just focus on their game. Okay, it's time once again to get you ready for the week ahead of games, and there are plenty of them because the Hornets are playing every other night. We've been doing recap, previews every other day on the show. I'm telling you, it's been exhausting for us, David. It's really, forget the players. It's been really exhausting for us. These
charter
back-to-backs.
flights.
All right. We're going to preview the week ahead the only way we know how, and that's Showdown style.
Welcome to the Showdown with Calamity James. Here are the matchups to keep an eye on this week. On Sunday, Reggie Jackson returned to the court after 7 months following procedure to treat tendonitis in his left knee. He had a solid showing in his return, scoring 18 points in 23 minutes, but still looked rusty at times and had 3 turnovers during the Pistons' 98-92 loss to the Magic. It remains to be seen how he might improve before playing the Hornets on Wednesday, but Kemba Walker will need to maintain his solid defense to make sure Jackson doesn't get too comfortable. On Friday, Bismack Biyombo returns to Charlotte with the Orlando Magic, and I'm sure many fans will remember Biz from his days with the Bobcats. When in Charlotte, Biz was a fan favorite because of his high-energy play, ability to grab rebounds, and his enthusiastic blocks. However, he was not always the most coordinated player on the floor and did have a tendency to get into foul trouble. This season, he is averaging 8.3 rebounds per game, so Cody and Roy will have to work hard to keep him off the glass. The second half of a traveling back-to-back will put Hornets in Cleveland on Saturday night. This will be a tough task in many ways, including the fact that the Hornets are playing the best team in the East, so Coach Clifford will be looking to his bench players to not only produce, but lock down the scores coming off of Cleveland's bench. Last time the Hornets and the Cavs met up, Charlotte's bench was outscored 30-37, with Iman Shumpert putting up 15 and Channing Frye adding 20. If the Hornets have a chance at winning on Saturday, the bench must be ready to step up and buckle down. In the past week, Draymond Green has gone on a bit of a spree, kicking James Harden in the head and Marquise Chris in the hand. He has attempted to explain away previous transgressions by claiming that he cannot control his reactions. But it got so bad during last year's playoffs that the league implemented a new rule in the offseason and even gave him a bit of a side-eye, calling such transgressions unnatural acts. Green can play innocent, but I haven't seen anyone else high-step around the league and into various players' body parts with as much frequency. Furthermore, if Green continues to impersonate Bruce Lee, it may not be he who receives a fine or suspension, but rather an opposing player sticking up for his teammates. Only time will tell. This has been the Showdown with Calamity James. You can follow me on Twitter at Calamity_James, and I will see you all next week.
You got a gun, Plenty? Or will you use mine?
Thanks again there to Calamity James. She's going to be on every week, helping us get previewed and ready for the week ahead. And she's talking about somebody fighting somebody if Draymond doesn't stop this kicking thing.
It's gotten crazy. At this point, it doesn't even matter, right? It's like if you can't control it, you gotta you just got to keep the legs down. But I will say this: the flexibility is impressive.
Yeah, he's doing yoga.
He crossed the line last week,
but it's not really benefiting. It's amazing to me that no action has been taken. I just can't believe it. After we saw what we saw in the playoffs, you're going to suspend him from a finals game, but then you're not going to have any follow-up action in the regular season. Just absurd.
You know what's going to happen? Somebody's going to put some pause on Draymond.
Well, that's what Calamity James was sort of alluding to there. Okay, let's talk about this Pistons game coming up tomorrow night. Mouthman15 on the chat wants to know, what do the Hornets need to do to beat the Pistons? The Pistons will have the services of Reggie Jackson, their star point guard, who they did not have in that blowout victory that they got over the Hornets last week. The Hornets, here's some news for you. The Hornets will have the services of Marvin Williams, who looks like he will be set to return, listed as probable, and it looks like, according to Rick Bonnell from the Charlotte Observer, looks like it's all go for Marvin Williams. May not get the full starters minutes, but he'll be able to play. So, guys, what do you think? What's your one key to the game against the Pistons, David?
I think continue what you did last night on the boards and that physicality. You're not going to beat this Pistons team if you come out and play a game where you're not physical and where you're not, banging up. Maybe getting Marvin back will help that, but I thought you saw the beginning of that last night in Dallas. So you have to keep that up and try and win that rebounding battle. I think that's going to be big.
The rebounding, that'll definitely be something to watch. Tobias Harris can't torch anybody like he did last time. And I would definitely.
By the way, Tobias Harris, even in his time in Orlando, I don't know if you remember this, Kurt, but he always torches the Hornets. Tobias Harris tortures the Hornets.
He looks forward to Charlotte. And another thing is late down the stretch, I would say probably the last 5 minutes, winning time. Some people refer to it as crunch time. There can't be any mental lapses on the defensive end.
Well, and I think three-pointers, right, is where you're looking at that, where you're seeing that last night. Gave up 28 three-point attempts to Detroit last time around. Gave up, 36 last night in Dallas. Various factors play into that, but defensive three-point defense for this team has been a concern over the last 2 weeks or so. That's got to be something they're looking at, and certainly when you have like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, they are getting Reggie Jackson back, so they have some guys who can get hot. Tobias Harris can get out there and shoot, and Morris can too.
I was going to say, don't forget about Marcus Morris. I watched them play against the Orlando Magic the other night, and he was absolutely blazing hot from beyond the arc. They have, at least in the starting unit, they have shooters. Now, when they start to break the lineup a little bit, then you're going to see their offense start to contract more inside. But I think that for the starting unit, they have to be committed to guarding the three-point shot. It has been a struggle for the Hornets all season. I think it's going to be a key to this game because I think that Tobias, Marcus, all of these shooters that they have on that starting unit are going to look to score and score quickly. And for Kemba, I think you've got to make sure that you hang with Reggie Jackson and do everything you can. It's that the 5-1 pick and roll that they have with Drummond and Reggie Jackson is really tough to defend. But you got to keep Reggie Jackson out of the lane because that's where those shots will come from. Is Reggie Jackson getting that penetration? So that's the big hope. And then Mouthman asking again, should Marvin start? Absolutely. I mean, you got to start Marvin. Got to get his energy. I mentioned it on Twitter the other night. I don't care if he hits another three. I do care, but we need those energy plays on the boards, on defense. Got to get Luke Kuechly, Thomas Davis of this defense back, as Clifford would point out.
Yeah, remember Drummond got kicked out of that game early too. Only played 12 minutes in the last game for the Pistons in Charlotte, and they still lost the rebounding battle on the board. So I don't know if that, you always wonder, if he went out, if that mentally affected some of the Hornets' aggressiveness, just knowing that guy's not out there.
Oh, it definitely did.
You know what I mean? But he plans to be out there, I'm sure, the whole time. Unless was he the one? Yeah, he elbowed in the back of the head, right? I was trying to remember because was
we
Howard
would normally assume that it was Cody Zeller.
Right.
It was.
But this time it was
Hibbert
Roy
saved him. Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah.
All right, so here's what I'm going to do because we've got some questions still on the YouTube chat, and I want to get to those. So I'm going to skip the Adam Modis interview, but I'm going to post the entire interview along with the entire Lee Ellis interview on the YouTube channel. So if you're listening on iTunes or if you're watching us right now and you haven't hit that little subscribe button on the YouTube channel, make sure you do because you're going to get alerts on when both of those full interviews, chocked full of great NBA information. You really want to take a listen. But right now I want to get to our next topic, which is All-Star rankings. It's not too early, folks, to talk about the All-Star game, even though it's not going to be in Charlotte, even though it's going to be in New Orleans, even though they take everything that we love and want. It's okay. We're still going to talk about the game. We're going to start this off with a little game of lock or bubble. And I'm going to read some names off, guys, and I want you to tell me whether you think that these Eastern Conference guards are a lock to make the All-Star roster at this point, or are they still on the bubble? First name, he's made the All-Star game 3 years in a row, but he's playing for a team that right now is really struggling, and they've struggled the past 2 years, even though they've got a new coach in Scotty Brooks. I'm talking, of course, about Washington Wizards point guard John Wall. David, lock or bubble?
He's not making this game. I don't think.
Wow.
I mean, he's not on the bubble, or he's certainly not a lock. I mean, they're not playing anywhere near well enough to have a representative in the All-Star game. I mean, he is playing well. He's John Wall. He's got the name recognition.
His numbers are up this season. He's really
There's no way they're going to reward John Wall out there this year. I don't think.
Justin, David said even if you carry a broken pail, it's still a broken pail. What do you think, John Wall, lock or bubble?
It hurts me to say this. I have to say bubble. Outside of Chris Paul,
Bubble?
outside of Chris Paul, John Wall is my favorite point guard, and he's balling. But they're awful.
Yeah, they're
like
horrible.
they suck. And John
Tells
Wall
us
is
you
my
really think,
man.
Justin.
John Wall is my guy, but I just don't see him. He's on the bubble this year.
You guys are crazy. I'm not going to give an opinion on this, but his field goal percentage is up, his 3-point percentage is up, his general efficiency is up. But all right, let's move to the
Well,
next.
he's not getting voted in, right? So he's not going to get voted in.
Well,
no,
see, that's
hell
tough.
No.
But
John Wall is not getting voted in to the All-Star game as a starter.
I think that can be debated though.
Okay, go ahead.
I do. I think that can
Okay,
be
debate
debated.
him then.
I mean,
You think
I wanna
he's
move
getting,
on to the next
You think
topic.
he's beating out Kyrie Irving, DeRozan, Thomas? I mean, I've got another surprise guy that could maybe hurt Kemba's chances in voting, but I don't think John Wall is getting those two top votes. That would be the only way he gets in my opinion.
Okay,
you do have
next,
coaches.
Do you have coaches?
Well, that's what I'm saying. The coaches aren't going to put him in. Yeah. Well,
All right.
no, I'm just saying the coaches aren't going to put him in. I don't think.
All right, next name, and you and Lee Ellis talked about this guy, Dwayne Wade, lock or bubble?
And that's.
Lock.
I think that's a bubble. I think he could be. Well, look at it. If he could get voted in, right? He could get voted in as a starter. And then if he doesn't, though, I mean, the competition in the East guards is like 5 or 6 guys
He's
for
going to get
maybe
some,
2 slots.
Well, look, he's a popular figure. He's playing
Right.
in his hometown. His numbers are crazy. 23. He's averaging 23.6 points per game right now,
Mhm.
which is nuts.
Wade's going.
That's higher than DeRozan. That's higher than Lowry. That's higher than Wall, Kemba, Isaiah Thomas. I mean, he leads. them
Wait,
all.
he's averaging 19 right now. 20, right?
I can't even think the man could average 20 with those knees. But
But regardless, yes, he's playing
Sorry,
fantastic,
yes.
and the team is playing well. But I don't think he's playing. I think if he gets voted in, that's going to take a spot from someone else.
people
in my
love
opinion.
Dwayne Wade, though, man.
I-
Like,
that's
that's
what I'm
tough
saying.
part.
If people love him and he gets the vote, you get 2 people
Yeah,
voting
somebody's
about
voting him
fans.
in. I'm actually very confident in saying a lot because people love him.
All right, we're going to run through these quickly. Isaiah Thomas, lock or bubble?
He's in. I would think he's in.
All right, Justin.
Bubble.
Kyle Lowry.
Bubble.
And finally, we'll talk about this one. Kemba Walker, lock or bubble?
I'm going lock.
We'll see. So I think he's teetering on bubble territory just because what we've talked about. I mean, in my mind, if you're talking about the votes, right, I would probably put Kyrie or DeRozan maybe. Okay, let's say that. So then you got 2 guaranteed guard spots.
Okay.
Okay, so you got Isaiah, you got Kemba, you got Kyle Lowry, you got Dwayne Wade, you got John Wall, and we haven't mentioned this, guys, but Giannis, where do you put him?
Forward.
Are you sure about that? Are you sure about that?
I hope. I'm not sure about anything.
Because I'm looking
at
up the guards. I'm looking at the guard stats on the NBA website, and he's 6th in
Man,
scoring.
they can't put Giannis as a guard.
And I'm telling you what, he is right at the peak. He is on the hype around him has only just begun.
That's
I mean,
not
it's
fair.
about to take off.
It's only just begun.
And if you look at where the Bucks are now, he may be considered a forward, I guess. But what was all the talk coming in this? He's going to be point guard. He's
Yeah.
playing the point guard. He's a point guard.
That's a good X factor.
So that's something to watch out for. I think if Wade gets voted in, I think if Giannis is considered a point guard, I still think Kemba is doing well enough this year with the jump he's made, where the Hornets are, that he'll likely
I
get
think
in.
the coaches are putting Kemba in.
Yeah, because Chuck here on the chat says Kemba bubble because the Hornets are not on TV enough. That's a good point, Chuck. But
Right.
a lot,
I mean, he's
a
not.
lot of national attention still, though.
Yeah, he's not getting voted in though. That's the point.
Kemba has been getting crazy hype on Twitter. Like NBA videos and videos being shared.
But
and
he's
NBA
not. You're right. He's
TV.
not going to get the vote.
He's
It's going
not
to go
gonna
to.
get the
it's
vote.
gonna
It'll be
go to-
coaches.
it's
Kyrie, most likely.
And who else?
I mean, that's what I'm saying. If Wade gets the vote,
I think Wade. I
Yeah.
really do.
Do
I
they
think
love
Wade's going to
Wade?
get
Wade's going.
because not only you have the
I mean, last year it was Wade and Lowry, right, for that last
And
starter.
Wade shouldn't
I
even
think
have been there last year.
that's what I'm saying.
you've got hometown. You've got people who are sort of nostalgic who want to give them one last rodeo. No, totally. Wade's
And
gonna
we
get
didn't
that
even
vote.
mention Beal. I don't think that's a possibility. I don't think Reggie Jackson obviously hadn't played enough. So I think that's what you're looking at. I do think they're going to find a place for Kemba. But I'm just saying, the numbers are going slightly down just a little bit at this point. He's still 4th in the East in guard scoring, so I think he's made enough headway. But let's say the Hornets take a deep slide. I mean, that's not going to help.
That'll kill him. He's for the ESPN Hollinger stats, he's 2nd in PER for point guards in the East. That's pretty impressive. I was like, all right, young Kimba, I see you.
Doug, do you have any takes on these hot takes? We just laid at your feet.
Well, I had the take that I don't think that John Wall's going to get any.
Okay.
But I think that's a shame because I think he's really played well this season
Doug.
Despite I have an affinity for players who play really well on teams that are not performing well because, we sort of witnessed that.
They're
That's
7.
right in
what are they, 7-10 right now?
That's right in our wheelhouse.
I mean, at this point in his career, too, you're like, well, is it going to happen? Is it going to happen for Wall in Washington?
And we haven't mentioned this factor that's not really a factor, and we don't ever want to really talk about it, but it kind of is a factor, and that's the guy who almost made the All-Star game and giving him that.
That's valid. Especially in Kimba's
bump, and I think that's Kimba. Yeah, I think that's going to play in Kimba's favor as well, giving him his justice from last season. But you saw then again, I think there's justice in the world, and I thought there was going to be last season, but then you saw the commissioner having to get involved because players get injured and they don't play in the All-Star game, and you have guys bow out, and then the commissioner steps in and puts guys in. And I thought, okay, for sure Kimba's going to get it. And then Pau Gasol gets put in. And then I was like, oh, no, one more guy went down. I was like, oh, okay, Kimba's going to get it. And then they put another forward in.
If that happens this year, he's in. If there's an injury involved, I think
much good guard play. There's so much good guard play in the Eastern Conference right now.
Now, Daniel asked us Kimba in the three-point contest.
No.
If it was in Charlotte, I would say yes.
Why not?
Why not?
No.
Why not?
He's shooting too well from beyond the arc at this point. Let's get Marco in there, too.
Kimba can shoot, but I don't know, like, 3-point shoot. It'd be fun. To just see a Charlotte guy out there, but
here's what they need to do. They need to make a new rule for Kimba. If this was Charlotte, we could have gotten this through, I think. But they need to give him a screen. Like, let's get a screener in there and let him come around. Then he could.
Oh, he'd make him then.
I don't think he would win. I think if he's going to get in, this year would be a year to do. I mean, look at his averages. I mean, look at the point guard he's playing and the pull-up threes. Right, they're in Steph Curry neighborhood. So
I have a hot take. I mean, it's not real hot. It's kind of warm. D-Wade's going to get hurt.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think that's going to happen. I think D-Wade's going to get hurt.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah. So
watch out, D-Wade.
I think that opens it up. Now, I do like Dwayne Wade, but I just think, his knees.
You're a too good to be true guy. You're waiting for the other shoe to drop.
I am. That's actually what it is.
He's played really well in Chicago. I'm just I just don't understand what's going on in Chicago. Just being
it doesn't make sense.
Not
I don't believe it.
You don't have to shoot 3-pointers apparently. It's crazy.
I don't believe it.
They're turning the NBA upside down in Chicago.
Rondo's tearing the locker room up too.
Well, then you have that too. So again, that kind of goes to the point. It's sort of Rondo, gets out of the way, and Wade's going to have more opportunities if that continues to be an issue. And we haven't even mentioned Jimmy Butler.
He'll be a forward. He'll be a forward.
Yeah, I forgot.
Because you got Wade and
Willie,
Rondo.
we live in this crazy world where Giannis isn't guard, and
that's because Giannis plays guard. Jimmy Butler doesn't play in the backcourt. He doesn't start in the backcourt.
Here's the thing:
Doug is getting upset.
You can't just say that someone's a point guard and make them a point guard. Okay?
Don't tell that to Jason Kidd.
You can't put cats in the oven and call them biscuits. Okay? It's not a thing that you can do. Okay? Kurt knows what I'm talking about.
Kurt, have you heard about these cat biscuits?
Come on, man.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh, man.
Bellinelli.
No, I'm just saying Jimmy Butler is a forward because the two starting guards on his team are Rondo and Wade.
Is Rondo a starting guard? I don't know.
Oh, my gosh.
Maybe not in the next few weeks. Keeps acting up.
I don't understand what makes that man so difficult. Like, he can't get along with anybody. And he's sensitive.
Hey, so
the more I do this show, I understand. I understand this not getting along with it.
So we should revisit this, I guess, when the votes start coming out, and we can look back towards it. But a quarter of the way into the season, I think it makes sense because that's a big goal. Fire up those biscuits, bro.
Cat biscuits. You've never heard that?
I haven't. I've heard a lot of sayings too. I've heard a lot.
So last year, just for the record, last year Wade and Lowry were your starters. at the
That's
guard
what I'm saying.
position.
Wade's
Kyle
not going
Lowry-
to go from being a starter to dropping completely off in the fan vote. That just doesn't. That's not going to happen.
Kyle Lowry was a product of having the All-Star game in Toronto. I
Kyle
think.
Well,
Lowry
there was
could drop out.
there was a big I think Kyle Lowry could drop off.
Oh, yeah, he's dropping.
And Wall was in the game too last year as well. So
John, I hope he gets in some kind of way. That's my guy.
It's been a fun show.
I've actually had a really good time. Well, I always have a good time, but
Well, we had a really good time because people were chatting with us today. That's been the big thing. So keep doing that because we want to read these. We know we didn't get to all of them, but we'll read one last one. Adam saying Kimba's going to be a fave of the ESPN insider type guys. He'll get a lot of advanced stats love. That's true.
that's true.
That's again I think that goes to the coaching vote.
it does.
So I think he's going to be a big contender for that coach's vote. We'll keep an eye on it. Thanks so much for listening to watching this live edition of Locked On Hornets. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On Hornets. Subscribe to us on iTunes so you can get those daily updates. We just don't have time to play everything on this show, so you really need to subscribe to us on iTunes so you can get all of that action. Hornets talk every single weekday. And we want to hear from you. Email us your Hornets thoughts, your questions, your comments. Maybe we didn't get to yours on the chat. Email them to us, buzzbuzz@hivetalklive.com. We'll address them through the week. For David, Doug, Justin, Calamity James, Kurt, producer Katie, everyone involved in the show, thank you so much. Go Hornets, go America, beat the Pistons. Let's swarm Charlotte.
Caffeine and then go to Coke and Pepsi. Trash is a problem with society. Always gotta find somebody else to take the fall. Never just be